All right, today class we're going to be talking about reflections. And what you're going to be able to learn this week is that I can reflect a figure on a coordinate plane. I can write the rule of a transformation, and I can perform and describe a sequence of transformation. So before we even get started, a reflection is a transformation which flips or mirror the figure over a line. All right. And that line is called the line of symmetry. All right, I was going to hyphenate it for me right now. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to practice actually mirroring an image, okay? So example 1, they ask us to triangle A, B, and C is being reflected over the x-axis, all right? So this is the x-axis as we remember on a coordinate plane. Now they ask us to draw triangle A prime, B prime, and C prime. So since first I'm going to write down our coordinate points of each triangle for the first triangle we have. Our first triangle we have for point A is coordinates 1, -3. Our points for coordinates B is 0, 3, 0. And our coordinates points for C is 4, -2. Okay, so we're going across the x-axis. And I'm going to, highlight it so everybody can remember. This is the x-axis. So one way to do it, since it's mirroring the x-axis, I would know for sure that since this is a mirroring the process, we would need to know how many points is the A away from the x-axis. So I'm going to simply just count how many spaces. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to do the same thing. So if it's 3 spaces get there, and since it's a mirror, it's going to be the exact same thing on the other side. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Since this is a new point, I'm going to 1, 2, 3. Since this is a new point, I'm going to make it in red so you can see the A prime. All right? Now let's do the same thing for B. Now the B is actually on the line of symmetry, which since it's on it, it's no spots away. So my B would stay in the same spot. All right? So my A prime would be -1, -3. And since my B didn't go any spaces away, it's going to stay the same. It's going to be 0. I'm sorry. 3, 0. All right? Now for C, I'm going to see how many spots is it away from my line of symmetry, which is 1, 2. And like I said, since it's the mirror, it's going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. And it's going to be 1, 2 spots away. So my C prime will be 4, 2. Now when I look at this, I notice that it's a pattern that all my x's stayed the same. Oh, I apologize. That should be +1, +1, and +3. I apologize. That should be 1, 3. All right. All my x's stay the same. It's 1 here, is 1 here, is 3 here, is +3, is +4, is +4. So when I look at that, my x stay the same. But when I look at my y coordinates, -3, +3. Since it's 0, 0 is a neutral number. It cannot go negative, positive. So that stayed the same. But when I look at my -2 to 2, it went the opposite. So a general rule with the x-axis for reflection, we would say the x stays the same, but my y will become opposite. So this is saying x stays the same, and a y becomes the opposite. All right. So remember, when I'm reflecting across the x-axis, my x stays the same and the y becomes the opposite. And the one way to write it in a rule is that we keep the x as it is and we do the opposite of y. Now this doesn't mean that the y is always negative. If the y start off negative, it's now positive. It's just letting you know it's the opposite of whatever the original y was. All right? So let's look at example 2. All right? Example 2 is asking us to give us the same corners points we had before, which is A, which we had before, which is 1, negative 3. 1, negative 3. We have 3, 0, and 4, negative 2. All right. Now this time they're asking us to reflect over the y-axis. Again, this is right here. My y-axis is vertical, all right? So it's going up and down, all right? It's going up and down. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm just going to count how many spaces it takes me to get to my y-axis to redo it to my other points. So to redo my A prime across the y-axis, I got to do the exact same thing on both sides. So I'm going to count 1. I'm 1 spaces away from my line of symmetry in this case, which is my y-axis. So I'm going to do it to the other side, 1 space away. So my new A prime would be -1, -3. All right? Let's look at my B and see what my new B prime would be. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to count over. 1, 2, 3. All right? So my new B prime will be -3, 0. And let's look and see what my new C prime will be. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to count over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my new C prime would be -4, -2. All right. So when I'm looking at this from my original A to my image of A, I notice that all my x values for each one is 1, -1, 3, -3, 4, -4. They're all the opposite, and while my y coordinates stay the same. So in this case, we're reflecting my x is the opposite and my y stays the same. So if I wanted to say my x becomes the opposite, and the y stays the same. So if I wanted to write that in a math terminology, I would have -x, y. Now remember, just because the x is negative doesn't mean my answer is automatically negative. It just means it's the opposite of what the original x is. All right? So let's do some more. We're going to do some more over example 3. All right. Example 3. They asked us, draw the triangle JKL, which has the coordinates of 0, 2, K, which J is 0, 2, K is 3, 4, and L is 5, 1. So 0, 2, 3, 4, which is my K, and L, which is 5, 1. All right. Oopsie, a little crooked, but that's okay. Now, it says draw the image J prime, K prime, and L prime after a reflection of J triangle JKL over the x-axis. All right. So before I start counting and all this stuff, sometimes I like to figure out what is another way I could do it without counting, because sometimes I do not want to make any mistakes of what happened. So I remember from my first one, when it says over the x-axis, my rule of thumb was the x stays the same and my y is the opposite. All right? So my x stays the same and my y is the opposite. All right, so this is my original points. My x stays the same and the y is the opposite. So I'm going to look over here. My x is going to stay the same, which is 0. The opposite of 2 is negative 2. So I have 0, negative 2, which is j prime. All right? Now I'm going to do the same thing for k. My x is the opposite, and x is the same, and y is the opposite. So I have 3, negative 4. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go down to negative 4. And for L, I'm going to do the exact same thing. X is the same, which is 5, and y is the opposite, negative 1. All right. So now I have my new triangle, which consists of J prime, K prime, L prime. It is all reflected over the x-axis. All right. Now it says draw the image J double prime, K double prime, and L double prime at the reflection of J prime, K prime, and L prime over the y-axis. So now they want us to use this triangle that we wrote from here, and they want us to have it go across the y-axis. So I'm going to first write my coordinates down. And I'm just going to transfer from what I had up top. And that's the best way to figure out, the best way to look up. We just already wrote it, and I'm just going to transfer whatever I wrote here. Now, remember, we already stated we have the y-axis. And for a y-axis, we remembered that the x, for our rule, for the y-axis, that the x is the opposite and y stays the same. So before counting and doing different things, I'm just going to use my general rule to help me with this information. All right? So my x is the opposite. We can't do anything of 0. 0 is a neutral number. It cannot go negative or can't go positive. So we just leave it as is. And my y stays the same, which is negative 2. So my J double prime is still going to be the same spot as my J prime. All right. Now we're going to look at this one. X is the opposite. So instead of 3, I would have negative 3. And my y stays the same, negative 4. So I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go down to negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. K double prime. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing with L. Opposite of 5 is negative 5 and negative 1. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and down to negative 1, which is L double prime. So I was able to show you how each one of my triangles has started. My original, it reflected over the x, and then from that, it reflected over my y. All right? And we're going to just skip this part, the bottom 2 questions right now, and we're going to go ahead and go to my example, or example 4. All right. So for example 4, they asked us, draw a triangle A, B, and C. We're going to use the same points we've been using. 0, 1, B is 3, 4, 3, 4, 0, 1, and 5, 1. So we're going to keep the same point so you can see how things different over different line reflections. Okay. Now it says draw the image of triangle A prime, B prime, and C prime after a reflection of triangle ABC over the x equals -1. All right, so anytime you see something that says x equals, know for a fact that this is a vertical line. All right, so this is a vertical line. So I'm going to find -1 on my x-axis, which is here. And I'm going to do this in red, -1. All right. Now, what if I want to draw this line? I'm going to go up and down because when it says x equals, I know for a fact that this is a vertical line. So I'm going to draw a line on my vertical line. All right. Now, on my vertical line, I'm going to look and see how far away each point is. So for my A, I'm 1 point away. And I'm going to do the same thing. This is now my line of symmetry. So I'm going to go 1 here, and I'm going to go 1 spot over. All right. So my new A prime is -2, 1. All right. So since this is not over an X or Y, I can't use any of the rules we have, and I would just have to count. So I'm how many spaces away from my line of symmetry would be, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to have to do the same thing over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. And for C, I would have to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we'll do it over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for my B prime, I should have -5, 4. And for my C prime, I should have -7, 1. All right. Now for my example 5. My example 5, we are still using the same coordinate points that we used before. We have 0, 1 as my first triangle A for point A, 3, 4, and 5, 1. All right. Now, it says draw the image triangle A prime, B prime, and C prime after a reflection of triangle ABC over Y -1. All right, so when I see the Y -1, I know that this is, since X equals something was up and down, I should know that this is a horizontal line. All right, so I'm going to find -2. And since it says Y equals, my line is going to go left and right. It's going to go horizontal. And I'm going to use these points that I had before, the same thing I did, since it's on a line, since it's actual on a number and not on an axis, it lets me know that I can't use the same rules that I did before. So now I'm just going to have to count how many spaces each point is away from my line of symmetry. So 1, 2, and now it's 1, 2. So my new reflection over A prime should be 0, -5. For B, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm 6 spaces away. And now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My B prime is 6 spaces away. And I'm 3, -8. Same thing for C, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go 3 spaces away, which is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go 3 spaces away, which is 1, 2, 3. Let me make sure this is 1, 2, 3. Oh, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this should be lower. I'm sorry. All right. And my C prime would be 5, negative 5. All right. So I use my line of reflect symmetry, and the line of symmetry is basically, if I was to fold this in half, right, is this my middle point? These points, my B should meet with my B, my C should meet with my C, and my A should meet with my A. So this is one of the reasons why we have the line of symmetry. It's saying if I was to do something right in the middle, that's how it would be. That would be the exact middle for that spot. We have a few more. 6 is asking us draw a line of reflection which causes rectangle KLMN to reflect onto rectangle K prime, L prime, M prime, N prime. All right. So basically what it says, what is the line of reflection? They're asking us, what is the middle point for each rectangle? What is the middle point there? So what is the exact middle point for each rectangle? All right. So when I look here, the best way to do it is to count how many spaces is from one point to another point. And I'm just going to use my K. So right now I have 1, 2. It takes me 2 spots to get from original K to K prime. And I want to know what is the middle point. So I would divide that in half. So half of 2 would be 1. So if this is my middle point right here, this is my line of symmetry or my line of reflection. So I would know now that since this is my line of reflection, I know that my line of reflection was also, it was reflection over the y-axis. And we know this is the y-axis because that's where the middle part fell. If it was on actual number, we would say the number. But since it's actually on the y-axis, we would just name it as the y-axis. All right. Number 7, it says draw a line of reflection of triangle A, B, and C to reflect over triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. All right. And what is the equation of line of reflection? Now, I'm going to count from first my 1A to the second A. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 spots for my 1A to get to my second A. So, of course, then we're trying to find a middle section, a middle point, the middle distance from each one. And half of 4 is 2. So I'm going to do 1, 2. All right. So since both of my triangles is one is at the top and one is at the bottom, I know my line is going to go horizontally. And before we say is any line is horizontal, what we said before, it has a y equals. And when I look and see what my line hit, an actual number, I know my line of reflection is y equals -1. So my line of reflection for example 7, and it's the halfway point for each triangle, is y equals -1. All right. We're drawing a quadrilateral CDEF, and if you want, you could try to do this one on your own. And this is going to have just a reflection of everything we've been doing from to this week and last week. So CDEF. All right. So it says graph a draw the reflection of a polygram CDEF over the x-axis. And like I said, sometimes I get confused. So the easiest way for me to do it is to actually write each coordinate out. So when I look at the graph, I see that C is 0, 2. My D is 3, 4. My E is 4, 2. And my F is 1, 1. All right. Now it asks us to draw the x-axis, reflect over the x-axis. And we're looking back at my notes, I know the x-axis is x stays the same, y is the opposite. All right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to rewrite each of the coordinates I have. C, D, E, F. All right. So C, the opposite, my X stays the same, 0. And my Y is the opposite, which is -2. All right. So my new C is 0, -2. C prime. My D prime is X stays the same, 3. And my Y is the opposite, -4. So I'm going to go to 3, and I'm going to go down to -4. That's my D prime. All right. E prime, X stays the same, Y is the opposite. So I go to 4 and go down to -2, E prime. And for F, I'm going to do the same thing. X stays the same, Y is the opposite. And I will go 1, -1. All right. So I have my new image that I drew that is reflected over the x-axis in red. It says, now create a polygram C double prime, D double prime, E double prime, and F double prime by translating polygram C double prime, D prime, E prime, F prime. 3 units to the left and 2 units up. Okay, so that goes back to what we did last week. This goes back to translation. So I'm going to, when it says that 3 units to the left, I know I have to, that means negative. I want to do 3 minus 3, x minus 3, and 2 units up. All right. So when I start this, I'm going to look at my answer. It says, what would accordingly be a point C? Since they only asked me about C, I'm only going to do this sequence on C. So I'm going to go over 3 units to the left. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go up. So 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go up 2 spots, which is 1, 2. So my C double prime, if I went after I moved 3 units to the left and 2 units up, my new point for C double prime would be -3, 0. All right. Describe however you move triangle 2, image 2, shape 2, to match the new shape 2 by using translation and one reflection. So what I would do now, I notice that it's on the opposite side, right? If I know it's on the opposite side, I know if I was to have my new point, this is 1 point away from the Y, this is 1 point, I will first reflect, all right? So I will first reflect across the Y-axis. So it flipped over. Now, this is the beginning point. I'm not going to draw the whole thing, but this is the nails for the image 2. So I need to get up here. My goal is to get here. All right. Everything else look in shape. So what I would do now is try to get from here to here. So then after that, I would translate how many units up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 units. And that's how I get from my original image 2 to my next image 2. All right. Thank you.